My name is Mike Distilio. I am the former principal at Bunker Hill, but the current director of student registration, data technology, and community outreach. And today we have some Panthers that we're talking to, and teacher Miss Matusz. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Miss Matusz. Some of you might know, some of you might not know the reason why I picked her. So in each of these episodes, I'm picking the leader, and then in turn the leader is picking the students, okay? Because sometimes in my world, I don't get a chance to interact with the students as much as I used to as the principal. So a little bit about Miss Matusz. I don't think she'll be embarrassed by me telling you this, but so Miss Matusz, a couple years ago, I believe, was an English teacher at Chestnut Ridge Elementary School. And it so happened that Miss Matusz and I were in various committees together. We didn't know each other. She was a newer teacher at the time, not new to the profession, but new to the district. And I was on the equity committee. I was also on the grading coalition, two things that I'm very passionate about. And I was always impressed by Miss Matusz about how she could articulate her point while at the same time not destroying anybody else's opinion in the process. It's a very unique skill to have conviction about what you think, but to then get a group of people to think the way you do without insulting them. All right, that's pretty good leadership. And then also, she then decided to pursue a social studies position here at Orchard Valley, and I was fortunate enough to be the one of the people that interviewed Miss Matusz on one of the rounds. So, and I was very happy to see that she landed here, and I felt at the time you were perfect for this school. So, and just your leadership and what you could bring, and like, we're going to talk about Panther Pride in a minute, but I thought in that interview that, Mr. Snyder, who's her supervisor, would have said the same thing, that you instill, Orchard Valley Panther Pride in your students. So I'm wondering if you could kind of share your leadership journey and then introduce our fine young students.
Sure. So I graduated from Rowan way back when in 2006. And I always wanted to be a teacher, and for me the best part of teaching is the kids. So I think that as long as you build that rapport with the students, that's my biggest philosophy, and study after study has shown that if you build a good rapport with your students, they're going to do well because they trust you and they know that you care about their success, and not just in your classroom, but in school and outside of school. And so for leadership, I just get involved whenever I can. I like to lead by example, so I like my kids to know that, hey, I've had failures in life, I've gone through things, I'm human just like you are. I never want to come across as condescending to my students, and I tell them all the time that they teach me more than sometimes I can teach them. And sometimes this parodynamic between teachers and students in the classroom can be a tricky thing to balance. But for me, I find that if you lead with respect, then you get respect back. And so I refer to my students as my kids, and at this point I've had probably 2,000 kids, and all of them have been amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So introduce your kids to
Sure.
us.
So this is John Southard.
Yes.
John is in my 7th period, 8th grade class. This is Felton Hanson, same class. And Angelina Martinez, same class. So I got all 3 of these kids in one class, so it's definitely a good class of the day.
So if you could you share a little anecdote or a little
Absolutely.
reason why each of them are at the
Sure.
table today?
So first off, all 3 of them come to my class with a smile every day, which is tough, especially in 8th grade and in middle school. My favorite thing on Mondays is we have weekend stories. And almost every weekend story on Monday is John and Felton going back and forth about their game, and they're either building each other up because they lost, or they're congratulating each other because they won, which is great to see their rapport and the respect. And so to start specifically with John, he has the reign of the classroom. He sits in the back. He sits in the corner. He does his thing. but he participates, right? So he's kind of like, he takes it in, almost like he's playing the game. He's like watching the field from the back of the room. And every now and then I'll try to catch him. I think maybe he's doing something. I'm like, hey, John, he'll know the answer. He knows what he's doing, right? Also, if he starts to get a little silly, or if something's funny and everyone's trying to calm back down, he'll get right back into it. So he's got like that game mindset. And so you can tell. What?
That Mamba mentality.
That's right. That's Mamba mentality. So you can tell when he needs to show up, he shows up. But he's just, it's nice to have someone that you like, he's just self-sufficient doing his thing and taking care of what he needs to take care of, which I appreciate at 8th grade. Because sometimes you see kids kind of sitting back and you're like, is that because they don't want to participate?
Right.
No, not at all. Felton, he sits right in front. And so I get to see him up close every day. Comes in with a smile on his face every day. We'll have some discussions in class that go into different topics depending on what we're talking about. And every time I look over at Felton, he's just so immersed in the conversation and just absorbing everything that's happening. Very humble kid, right? So usually John will give him a shout out from the weekend stories about their football game. And, you know, Felton's just very humble, but shows up and knows what he has to do and is another A student. And so the two of their personalities complement each other. I can imagine they do the same on the field. I don't get the pleasure of seeing them playing, but I imagine their leadership goes that way as well. And then we've got Angelina. Angelina shows up every day with the same smile. She sits near the front, and she is ahead of the game 5 steps before I am. Like, I'm pretty sure if I had her do my lesson plans, I would be done by February. It would be already planned out. She comes in, she wants to know what we're doing, how are we going to do it, what's the grade going to be. And in fact, at one point, one of my favorite stories was I told her not to worry about something. Like, she had to turn it in. By the end of class, she was having a problem with technology. You know, my nickname, No Excuse Matusz, it has to be on time. And so it was the end of class, and she's fumbling, and it was a group project, and she can't get it turned in. She can't get it submitted. And she's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I was like, don't worry about it. We'll do it tomorrow morning. And she was like, but it's due tonight, and if I don't get it in by now, it's going to be late. And I had to tell her, like, Angelina, I'm the one that's grading it. I'm telling you, we can do it tomorrow. And she was not comfortable with that answer. The next day, she comes in, as soon as class starts, she comes in here. And so I had to mess with her, and I was like, oh, it's late. And her face, she was so distraught. But she probably would have accepted it because she was like, oh, I understand. But so all three of them together in one class gives you a bit of a glimpse into how fun my last class of the day is.
That's awesome. And you know, when we talk about ethical leadership, what Ms. Matusz was talking about, I want us to kind of go back and talk about some of those qualities she talked to you guys about, because it's really important about moving forward. And then, you know, even the Mamba mentality, that's an important facet of this as well. So, Ms. Matusz chose you as leaders, and I'm going to go down the line, and John, you just happen to sit in front of me, so unfortunately you're going to be the one to start. But I'm going to go down the line and want to, just before I ask the general questions, I want to ask, you know, how do you see yourself as a leader? Maybe you could talk about what Ms. Matusz said, or just maybe take that in a different direction, but I'll start with you.
Yeah, like what Ms. Matusz said, like I'm very like I like to participate a lot.
Okay.
I like to help other people if they're down. I like to help them up, and yeah, like that stuff.
So what does that look like? So that's what that looks like in the classroom. What does that look like in your regular life?
On the football field.
Okay.
If somebody, you know, is down, I can help them up. Especially Felton. I give him all the compliments. He's doing really good.
That's
So.
true. He does. When Felton maybe thinks he had a bad game and we're talking on Monday, he's like, it's all
Yeah.
right, man. They
I'm
get up
always
and they hug it out in class.
Yeah.
Good. Felton.
All right, so I think as a leader, I can like find myself taking accountability for my actions, cause like not all the time, not everybody's gonna be perfect. Everybody has mistakes sometimes, so I find myself being able to like stand up for that and like understand the mistake I made and improve on that.
I'm gonna push you a little bit, because what does that look like in the classroom?
In the classroom,
So like, let's say Ms. Matusz said you're a good student, but let's say there's a random quiz or a random test and you tank it, right?
yeah.
So what if you have that self accountability? What do you do?
I'm able to like understand why I tanked that quiz or test and like find out how I can fix that. Like studying more, meeting up with the teacher, and all of that.
Very good. Very good. Angelina.
I try to do my best, like, even if I know, like, I'm not, like, gonna maybe do, like, the best, I'll, like, still try to fix it, maybe, like, do better than I did, like, the last time.
Excellent. I think hearing all four of you speak, you guys, you lead by example. It seems, you know, you're not that person that's grabbing the mic and being like, hey, everybody, listen to me, but your actions are speaking about the kind of leader and the kind of person each of you are. So thank you for sharing. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was your Panther pride. So just a little bit of background. So, you know, before I was the principal at Bunker Hill, which I was for 7 years, I was also the assistant principal at Gateway Regional School District for 9. So I'm about over 20 years. I've actually been involved in a middle school in some facet. I'm actually from Virginia too, so I was an administrator there for a while. But I've been dealing with middle school kids for more than half of my career, almost all of it. And I find, having been a leader in the middle school, that the defining thing that helps a middle school improve or be recognized is the fact that everyone works collectively around a single vision, right? So that if, you know, whatever happens in Miss Matusz's classroom is happening in Miss Lesso's classroom, is happening in Miss Bamaka's classroom, right? So if everybody believes in that, they all move forward. And at Bunker Hill, we have something similar, and we talk about what it means to be a bulldog. Here, it's what it means to be a panther, okay? And panther, we have the pride acronym, and there are different qualities associated with being a panther. And, you know, this is the expectation that Frau Berry and Mr. Zakowski and everybody who works here kind of talks about. This is what it means to be a panther. So, Felton, I'm going to start with you, all right? So, of these 5 qualities, positivity, respect, integrity, determination, and excellence, which one is most important to you as an Orchard Valley Panther?
I think the most important to me is probably like excellence.
Okay.
And for that reason, it's probably because, like, during school, I always try to be my best. Because I know that last year, my grades weren't the best, but this year, they're a lot better. So I'm striving to be better from last year.
Good job, Felton.
What made you turn it around?
Just focusing more, studying, and actually, like, listening.
Okay.
That's why you listen so intently in class.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Angelina.
For me, determination, because to meet, like, all the goals that you want to meet, like, you have to work for it, and, like, stuff might set you back, but you kind of have to, like, keep on going.
It's something that I call failing forward.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever heard that term before?
I think, like, once or twice.
Yeah, it's the idea that, you know, mistakes are okay.
Yeah.
As long as, you know, you learn from those mistakes. If you keep making those mistakes over and over again, then that's a problem with you, right? But if you have that determination to learn from your mistakes, you're going to be better for it. Thank you. John.
I think the most important one to me is respect.
Okay.
I feel like you always have to show respect if somebody's talking. Pay attention to them, especially with opinion-based things. I feel like you really have to pay attention to them. Like, there's a lot of opinion-based things. People have differences. Like, somebody says Jordan's the GOAT. Somebody says Bron's the GOAT. You got to listen to what they're saying.
And then we all agree it's Jordan, and then we all move on.
No, it's Bron.
Yeah.
It's Bron.
No, I respect your opinion, though.
Yeah, I respect that you like Jordan, but I think Bron's the GOAT.
Jordan actually would tell you that it's different eras, so you have to respect both
That's
players.
right.
That's what
Exactly.
Michael Jordan would
Yes.
say. But you know, you talked in an earlier question about the Mamba mentality. Now, I read the Mamba mentality, so I'm very well versed. You know, I'm wearing my Jason Tatum Jordans, but in the Mamba mentality, it's the constant quest to be better than you were the day before. That's what the Mamba mentality is. So, you know, you don't seem like the kind of guy that's going to go and stand up and say, "Hey, respect Miss Matusz," you know? So how do you do that? Like how do you, like, when you're talking about, like, you're sitting in the classroom leading, you have good role models, right? At least the celebrity role models, Jordan, LeBron and Kobe, like you have those role models, and those people were successful because they kind of never gave up and became experts in their craft, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I don't know that one.
Want me to help you out?
Yeah.
For the in classroom, if we get off top, like we're talking and we're say transitioning from one thing to another.
Yeah.
John will use his position.
Oh, yeah.
He will use his position in his clout in the classroom, right? He knows that certain kids, like he's friends with them. And so if he needs to get his friends back on track, he'll put them back on track. So instead of me doing it, he'll be like, all right, guys, we got to listen now, and because it's coming from another student, that helps out a lot. So he kind of uses his position of social power to kind of help
Very good.
be a leader.
That's using your privilege for a good thing,
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Anybody else want to go deeper as far as this pride thing? I'm wondering how you do this outside of school. So if you're a Panther inside of school, you should be a Panther outside of school too,
Yeah.
right? So, Angelina, what do you think? How are you a Panther outside of school?
So there's like multiple ways, I
Okay.
guess. Like you could respect other people, and like I respect my parents a lot, and so like most of the time when they ask me to do something, like I'll do it, and sometimes I'll give them a little attitude, but it's okay. We get over it. And then I have a
Who
little
gives
sister.
attitude? You give the attitude, or parents give the attitude?
I kind of match
Okay.
energy.
Okay.
She claps back.
But then I also have a little sister, and so like you have to be mindful to like be a leader for her.
Good.
So that's like one way.
Excellent.
It's a
Excellent.
lot of pressure.
How do you do it, Miss Matusz? How are you a Panther inside and out?
For me, I think integrity has a lot to do with it. My kids know I'm huge, like anti-bullying. I don't like bullies. My son has autism. He's at Bell's. I show up and do the right thing when nobody's looking, right? So even if it's, I sometimes tell the kids a story. I had a job once where on my lunch break I'd be able to go for a decent run. And I would start out of this driveway and I'd finish, there was another driveway to enter. But I always ran to the driveway I started at. And nobody was paying attention. I was doing it for myself. If I'm running or if I'm doing something that's active, say a challenge, whether it's in the gym or if it's something that's really tough to push myself through, I do the right thing, even though I have nobody to prove myself to.
Yeah.
But I know myself, if I said I'm going to do 20 push-ups, I'm going to do 20 push-ups. If I was able to bike 15 miles the day before, the next day, I know I can do it. So I'm going to continue to do it. And I think the whole part of evolving, like you said, there's actually a spin instructor that I like a lot, the Peloton, and his name is Alex Toussaint. And he always says, you have to evolve every day. Every day you're either going to stay the same or you're going to evolve. And sometimes that's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I had mentioned to you I had written a book, like to throw myself out there and send a manuscript and get a response. And then I sat in between being a mother, between teaching full time. I got that book out like a month before the deadline to that publisher. And it was uncomfortable and it was scary, but now I did it. And so I try to teach my kids to do the same thing. Like some things are going to be uncomfortable, especially when it comes to peer pressure, especially at this age. You have a lot of give and take with certain people, and there's some social currency, but there's the right thing to do. And I hope that I can lead by example. And we speak openly about these things, and I let kids know they can come to me if they ever need anything. And it's that integrity piece where nobody's paying attention, but you pick up that piece of trash, or you stick up for that kid that's getting made fun of. And that's what I really see in these kids is that quality.
That's really good for you guys to be able to do that at a middle school when there's all sorts of pressure to go the other way, all sorts. It sounds to me that whether it be coaches, parents, teachers, that you guys are like sponges and you're just kind of absorbing everything that everybody's giving you. Want to ask a question, and this was something we brought up just earlier off camera, but it was about ethical leadership. And we talked about the importance of kids nowadays being ethical, and sometimes as adults, especially people who are our age or older, our generation, let's say that, we are looking to leaders, but we can't find them, whether it's locally, whether it's nationally, world. it's hard sometimes. Sometimes, we sit at sporting events and we see somebody else's parents just acting the fool, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing? Or you might be at a friend's house and you might see somebody not treating their sibling correctly, right? But you need to do that. And so we talk about ethical leadership. And so the terms I gave you were accountability, courage, character, integrity, empathy, resilience, and self-awareness. And some of you kind of talked about it earlier in the questions. But I kind of want to know how you're an ethical leader. Yeah. So I think I'll start with John again. I want to know how you're an ethical leader.
I think accountability
Okay.
is the best option because on the football field, we have on defense, we have our own like plays. We have coverages, especially cover 3.
Okay.
It's a zone. We all have our zones. Felton has a zone. I think, what is it, deep third?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have curl. So on a pass play, you got to go right to that zone. You have to be held accountable. You have to know what you're doing.
Awesome. You covered the tight end.
It's kind of like a zone. So in the curl, you would curl out, and you're staying in that area. Whatever comes your way, you got that guy.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And you cover the back third. Is that what it is? Mostly what the safeties do, right?
Yeah.
All right. So your accountability, you want to make sure, especially in your world, if everybody has a job to do, everybody's responsible for that job and accountable for that job, right?
It's almost like when they didn't know who should cover first base during the World Series for the Yankees. What happens if you're not there?
The ball goes into right field.
What happens if you're not there, right? Like you ruin the play for the whole team. So you need to be on point. And I think that's a great thing that sports teach our kids anyway. It's just to be a team player. And it's not so that you get the glory. It's so that the person making the play knows that you're there and your little piece adds into it,
Yeah.
Felton, ethical leadership.
Something about ethical leadership that kind of represents me is like self-awareness, being able to like see who I am as a person and see how other people see me, and like how they respect me and how I respect them.
It's a great quality to have, and it's something that's actually lacking in society today. The ability to make a mistake and own it, and to say, I did that, and then as long as you work hard to rectify it and correct it, people are going to respect you.
Oh, and what do you do if somebody sees you in a way that you don't want them to see you?
I try to understand the reasoning
Okay.
and
a good
try
answer.
to fix on that.
All right. So understand why they have that perception of you if it's not
Yeah.
truly who you are.
Mm.
So yeah, it's impressive.
Angelina, would you like to share?
Yeah, resilience, I feel like is a big thing.
No, please, go ahead.
It kind of shows that you kind of keep on pushing through, even if stuff kind of gets thrown at you.
It's also a term called grit. Have you ever heard of grit?
No.
So grit and resiliency are synonyms to each other. They mean similar things. So to have grit is to be faced with a problem, and it might, for a normal person, it might wreck them, and they might be down and out. But for the gritty person or the resilient person, they're able to take whatever's thrown at them and keep moving forward, right? That's important.
Gritty, not to be confused with giddy, because we're not hitting,
Right.
Definitely,
not hitting the gritty.
it's definitely something to look out for in people, because it shows that they're trying their best in a way.
Outstanding. Miss Matusz, how about you?
Let's see, I'm so jealous of them knowing exactly who they are. I feel like I could always use more self-awareness. Accountability, again, that's a tough thing, especially when you get older, you get stuck in your ways, and sometimes you're just no, that's what I meant, or especially when you're a parent, it can be tough. For me, I'd have to say empathy. I think that's my biggest strength. And I know with my son and also being a teacher of teenagers who know everything, empathy is having patience, and just understanding where somebody's coming from. If I have a student that's going through something or they're in a bad way, I understand my classroom's not the most important thing in their life. So, hey, you weren't able to get your homework done, don't worry about it. I'm more concerned about what's going on, how can we fix it, If there's an issue with another student, how can we talk through it? And just understanding that everyone's carrying their own thing when they come to school, and that's students, it's coworkers, it's everything in the building, and just coming from a place of understanding before you judge, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, Ms. Matusz, if you can kind of just encapsulate some of the stuff here as far as these kids, and you obviously, you know, we're just talking about seventh period right now, but like, can you talk about the culture that you have in the classroom? Because obviously, these students here, you know, John, Felton, and Angelina, they're using words such as, I'm trying to be self-aware, I'm trying to be accountable, I'm trying to lead by example, you know, and then to have let's say a class is 25 kids, to have 3 kids in the class of 25, it's, for teachers, it's an absolute game changer to have 3 leaders in there, you know, different leaders. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think sometimes students rise to the occasion. So there are some students that have those leadership qualities, but maybe they're not in the right direction, or maybe they're not being given the opportunity to use them. For me in the past, and I've taught in some districts where there was a lot of behavioral issues, not this district, those kids just needed to be channeled and given the opportunity to show leadership. A lot of times the students who can be the loudest, it's because they're a leader, but they're being a leader in the wrong way, or they're getting caught up with the wrong thing. Just giving students a chance to have their voice. You know, I listen to what they think. We have really good discussions in class. It's a back and forth. I think the whole critical thinking skill, especially with social media, is really tough, and that's not something you can teach. So we teach it through having discussions, disagreements. Who's better, Jordan or LeBron? You know, I also have my Jeter, my Mamba posters up in my classroom, and I let them know, like, you got to push through when life is hard, because it doesn't owe you anything. And when you see students, especially from 7th to 8th grade, there's just like this summer of maturity. And when they come back, you can tell that they're becoming young men and young women. And to want to be accountable, and if they fail that quiz, they don't blame it on the teacher. You know, if they miss the pass or the play, it's not because somebody else was in the wrong place, but to watch them be mature enough to say, like, this is what I need to do. And as far as, you know, Angelina specifically also, as far as getting her work done, I mean, this girl, she's on task all the time. Right. In fact, I've even told her, like, hey, listen, you got to take a breath. The sooner you realize you can't control life, the easier it is. But she's so determined, and that's who she is, and she's going to take that so far. But I think when you have just one personality in the classroom, if you can, as a teacher, kind of highlight that a little bit so the other kids can fall in, and especially with the social currency, if you have a kid that other students really kind of look up to for whatever reason, you build that rapport with that student, and all of a sudden you don't have an issue with them, and then the other students are going to follow their lead. But I do believe, and, you know, Harvard just released that study that the #1 indicator of student success is their rapport with their teacher.
100%.
And we're people first. I'm a teacher, but I'm here because I'm invested in their success, and I care about how they're going to do. And if I do it right, then they keep in touch with me, and they come back when they're in high school, and they tell me about all the amazing things they're doing.
They come to career day, you know, right?
That's
yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to, like, close it out with something that they were thinking of, or?
For the resilience,
Yeah.
I feel like you need to be in the right mindset to, like, keep pushing yourself. So, like, if you're, like, really tired or something like that from, like, a sporting game or something, you need to have the right mindset to keep pushing at 110%.
I agree.
I was wondering what you had for ethical leadership.
Wow. I've never been asked a question here before. I appreciate that. Here's what I believe. I believe that I'm on this planet not for myself. I believe that I'm on this planet to help others better themselves. So as far as, I would say, for me, it would be character. I think I need to, like it or not, I have a position that makes me, if I go into ShopRite, people see me. You know, if I go somewhere with my kids, people see me. Now, my kids all go to this district. Like, if I'm acting a certain way poorly, that affects my kids. It affects my wife, right? So I try to make sure that everybody around me is lifted up, and then I just have the ability to talk to them and celebrate their success. I already had my success. I already had my varsity letters. I've already had my scholarships. I don't need them. I'm just here to serve others. Maybe when I was your age, I was there to get to this point, but I appreciate you asking me that question. But yeah, I feel character is important to me. So anyway, well, that concludes our podcast, so to speak. We are going to publish this on the website and on different social media platforms, so you'll be able to share the link with family and friends, okay? I appreciate all of you for being here. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Matusz. Appreciate you.